Warning: the following challenge is performed by an idiot. Please do not attempt to recreate or reenact this run unless you too intend on becoming hollow. Hey, what's up guys? It's Cody. A couple of weeks ago, I asked you all on a poll what you'd like to see for the holidays. And, well, you voted, so here we are. It's time to deliver and continue our camera-shy journey into Drang Lake as we answer the question of, is it possible to beat Dark Souls 2 without moving the camera? And this time around, I've turned it up a notch by completely unbinding the camera, as it is now permanently locked facing, I guess, north? We'll call it north. As you can imagine, this changes everything. Fighting enemies, dodging attacks, and even just getting around, it's all 10 times harder when you can't even see where you're going. So, let's dive into the chaos and see if this insane challenge is even possible, or if I'm just setting myself up for disaster. Alright, while I'm getting set up here, you'll be happy to know that No Nick has decided to make this a family affair, passing the torch this time to his cousin, Nick Cole. And if you haven't already noticed by now, absolutely nothing is safe from our shenanigans, not even the cutscenes, which leads to, interesting moments. After the absolute nightmare that was Dark Souls 1 Neckless, I knew from the start that landing hits consistently was going to be a pain, so I figured I'd better choose my weapon wisely. And spoiler alert, I went for something that doesn't require constant aiming, the halberd class. Trust me, when you can't look around, it's basically your best friend. Just spin around and boom, if there's something nearby, it's dead. Here's the catch though, getting my hands on one isn't going to be easy. The closest halberd that I'm aware of is in the Shaded Woods, which means I've got to go free Rosabeth with a branch of yore. But first, I need to head to the Forest of Giants and grab that branch from Granny. And that's when I hit my first obstacle, bridges. With the camera stuck like this, it is often possible that when I reach certain areas, that the camera will be completely flipped, meaning I can't even see what's in front of me. So cue the inevitable. To counter this, I'm either going to have to memorize entire areas in my least run game, or pray that my soul stain gives me some direction on where not to step again. After a few more spills, I finally make it across and should be safe for now. Should being the word. I hit up Granny so we can go clubbing, and after falling here an embarrassingly amount of times, it's time for our first boss, Last Giant. Here's the deal. I can't move the camera, so keeping an eye on the boss is a little tricky, but with a little strategy, I can pull his aggro and loop around whenever he gets behind me. It's not perfect, and yes, I do get stomped a few times, don't judge, but it works well enough to get the job done. Once he's down, I buy a bunch of stuff from Granny so she'll give me the Silver Serpent Ring +1 for that sweet 20% soul increase. Back in Majula, I grabbed the mace from Leningrad, and whoops, my finger slipped. I accidentally killed Mouflin. Rip. But hey, at least I get his gear, which boosts my soul gain by another 22%. Score. Now let's go take on the pursuer. But there's something weird happening here. Is the fog gate mad at me? Maybe it's because I keep penetrating it. Honestly, I thought Pursuer was going to be a disaster, but surprisingly, his small arena means he can't get very far away from me, and after a few hits, he went down first try. And now, I've got the Ring of Blades, giving me 20 bonus melee damage, which is nice. With the souls I got from him, I finally head back to Granny to buy the Branch of Yore, and make my way to the Shaded Woods. I free Rosabeth, and pick up some Twinkling Titanite, the Red Tearstone Ring, and the Old Sun Ring as I go. I figured the Sun Ring would be super helpful this run since it explodes when I take damage, so if I get surrounded, I can basically blow my way through. Once I reach the next bonfire, I jump across this gap. I said jump across this gap, and this one, and then bingo! I pick up the Black Knight Halberd. While it's not as OP as it was in Dark Souls 1, it's still perfect for letting me take down Notchka right now. I almost took her down first try, but Notchka convinced me she'd like to go for a second round, if you know what I mean. So after giving her exactly what she wants, the Black Knight halberd is good, but I can still do better. Before I head into Hyde's tower, I swing by Grandpappy to kick off his questline. Because, let's be real, I'm a masochist and planning on fighting both Dark Lurker and the DLC bosses to make up for my failure in the one-shot contest. So that's more of my pain for you to look forward to. Once in Hyde's, I purposely left Dragon Rider's arena open so you guys could watch me suffer. But surprisingly, Dragon Rider decided not to bully me off the edge, and instead, I just duke it out with him in the center ring. Once I take him down, I move on to No Man's Wharf, grab another branch of yore, and then backtrack to deal with this hollow who just refuses to stop being a stiff. And after a bit of grinding, and making this Mastodon go extinct a second time, I finally get my main weapon for the rest of the run, the Mastodon halberd. Time to max this bad boy out, so that means I've got to head down. So, after buying the cat's ring from, well, the cat, I was ready to tackle what I thought would be the tricky descent into the gutter. Somehow I made a first try. I was honestly shocked. But of course, this is Dark Souls, and the game's not going to let me off that easy. The camera is constantly facing the wrong way through the gutter, and you know where this is going. I step forward, and yep, straight into oblivion. After what felt like an eternity of falling thanks to some seriously questionable OSHA standards, I finally crawl into Black Gulch. But despite how annoying it was to get here, it was worth it. Because now, I've got access to large titanite and titanite chunks from my favorite gummy worms. Now while I was getting off screen by this fucker, something clicked. Poison is insane in Dark Souls 2. It just melts health bars. So with that in mind, I thought, why not give it a try? I grind a bit more for souls and titanite, max out my halberd, and throw a bonfire aesthetic into the main bonfire. Then I go over to Mouflin, apologize for bashing his head in earlier. He forgives me, thankfully.
Oh, hello again.
And he hands over the butterfly set. The idea behind this was simple. Poison enemies from a distance. The problem? Well, it turns out I need to be in melee range for it to work, which makes it pretty useless when I could just bash them in with the halberd at this point. So after Lycia shows me why she's scarier than most bosses, I head straight for the Rotten. Now, for those of you who watched my one-shot video, you know why. Behind the Rotten is Flynn's Ring, which scales your damage with your vitality stat, which I won. It ended up being a very sloppy fight, plus, despite being in melee range, the Rotten didn't even get affected by poison, which only cemented my decision to eventually quit using the butterfly set altogether. Oh, and as for the cutscene, another angry fog wall. Next up, I pay a visit to the Gym Bros, and then take another Assassin's Creed style leap of faith into the pit. Grabbing the key, and head into Ymfah. Fun fact, I can't aim a bow, which means all those trigger things in Ymfah, either way too hard to hit, or downright impossible. Especially the ones in Dragon Sanctum. So things like shortcuts or the bonfire behind this door, completely inaccessible. That really sucks, but just adds to the unintended difficulty of the challenge, I guess. But hey, it's not all bad. I can still grab Flynn's ring from the chest, which is a massive upgrade for me. And it's going to be on that ring slot for the rest of the run. Alright, it's time to decide which of the retirement community I want to take out first. The Lost Sinner, who has the lowest HP, but she's a pain to hit thanks to her constant movement. Freya, who's less mobile but a nightmare for other reasons I'll get to. Finally, there's the Old Iron King, slow and easy to hit. And who I want to delay going to for as long as possible. Why? Well, you'll see. But for now, since Lost Sinner has the lowest HP, and none of the paths offer anything substantial, I'm heading to Lost Bastille to take her on first, where I get to bully these golden boys one by one. They try jumping up and help their friend, but instead, they just got knocked out like the beanpoles they are. Moving on, I grab the Bastille key and head to Stoner Strayed to pick up Lingering Flame for later. Then, it's time to drop down and say hello to the second old one. Okay, this fog gate is definitely scaring me. Believe it or not, I don't have much to say about Lost Sinner. She's hard to track, but once I land a few hits, that low HP doesn't hold up. Second old one down. Now, I did grab Lingering Flame for Strayed, but I still need a flame to actually use it. And you know what? Ain't no way in hell I'm going back into the gutter for the Dark Flame. I'd rather hit my funny bone against a cement wall for 10 hours straight than to return to that hellhole. So instead, I head back to No Man's Wharf to deal with Flexile Sentry. No surprise here, he's laughably easy. I grab the flame, and then, because I'm a genius, I dive into the ocean and drown because I don't understand how docks work. Now, why bother with Lingering Flame in the first place? Simple. It's perfect for zoning against mobs. When I cast it, the flame lingers in the air for about 20 seconds and explodes when anything gets close. Like a mine, which I love. So if I cast it off screen, it's a great way to handle enemies that might rush me. Like the rats and pharaohs. After using my patented stand inside an explosion technique, I take care of the rats and get the good boy to play dead. Quite convincingly, I might add. Here's an unexpected twist. I get a Germ Hammer drop from the first Germ I fight. Not planning to use it, but hey, I'll take it. Onward to Brightstone. I walk into the church and face the congregation next, who I take care of in a manner very similar to that scene from Kingsman. Freya though, well, she's a pain in the ass. Running back off ledges where you can't see where you're going, brutal. And hitting Freya's head would be easy if Dark Souls 2 actually had consistent hitboxes. But in the end, it doesn't matter if she refused to give me head or not, because I just spam life gems and play whack-a-mole until she eventually does. Only one more old one to go. And now it's time to come clean as to why I waited to tackle him. It's simple. There's just a lot of places to fall off. I know that sounds lame, but after a couple hours of falling just trying to get around, it'll start doing that to you. Also, Lycia still scares me. Luckily, she can join in on the fun. It's the sudden stop that gets you. I grab the Rotunda Lockstone and head to Huntsman's Copse. The camera's facing the wrong way, so I do have to sidestep my way through, slowly. Thankfully, once I hit the cliffs, I can actually see where I'm going, allowing me to have a clear path to Skelly Lords, where I have a bone to pick, and a pretty normal fight, all things considered. Once I reach Harvest Valley, it's time to fight the Covetous Demon. Oh Lord, Covetous. Okay, no, I'm just fucking around. He's still a total joke. But I do have a small embarrassing moment here. After defeating Covetous, I somehow forgot to hit record after beating him. Cue 30 minutes of me dying in Earthen Peak, and realizing I messed up only after I beat Ymfah. Oops. But hey, I backed up my save, so no biggie. And here's the real nightmare I wasn't expecting. The Lawn fucking Knights. Seriously, who at From Software thought these Mach 10 missiles were a good idea? Fuck you. For comparison, I'd add more to these guys trying to get to Smelter than I did for all the other bosses of this run. Fucking ridiculous. Now, once I actually reach Smelter Demon, it's a pretty brain dead fight. I just hit and run, and after a few rat-a-tap-taps, he goes down. I pop back into the arena for Pursuer. After giving him a few love taps, he finally hands me a ring. Too bad, buddy. I'm taken. I take the rest of Iron Keep slowly, baiting enemies one by one, until I finally reach the last boomer on my list. My first attempt goes surprisingly well, but of course the theme of this run strikes again as I take an Anakin Skywalker inspired swim. Thanks, Dark Souls. Second attempt? Same story, but third time's the charm, right? I stop hiding behind the wall, stick to the ledge, and fist bump him into oblivion. Finally, I light the last bonfire and what the fuck is this? Oh, Aldia. I honestly forgot about you. With the retirement community officially retired, it's time to head to Drangleic Castle and grab the King's Ring. But before I go full-on royalty mode and chop off some heads, I swing by to pick up the frozen flower. Gotta unlock Liam Lois when I dive into the DLCs later. First things first, the Twin Dragon Riders. I let the halberd-wielding one do the heavy lifting, breaking the pillars and bringing his buddy down. And once I murder his buddy, it's smooth sailing. I just keep trading blows with the halberd guy until he finally falls. Next up, Looking Glass Knight. He's like the middle child of this run. Not the hardest, but he's got a couple of tricks. He has a shield that loves to bounce me off since I can't see him. Then he summons a phantom, adding some chaos to the mix. But the phantom's slow as molasses, so I just kite them both around until Looking Glass finally breaks. Now, we're off to Shrine of Amana, which starts out a bit of a nightmare. Because, surprise, the camera's once again facing the wrong way, and these Archdrake priests keep hammering me with their religion. But, being the logical person I am, I solve the problem by ending their entire bloodline and move on. After I reach the next bonfire, the camera is facing where I need to go, and I reach the Demon of Song with way fewer headaches. I start Flippy's fight by casting poison on him when he tucks himself in, then slash his face whenever he peeks out. Not a lot to talk about here, folks. Moving on. Entering Undead Crypt, I have a quick chat with Aldia about how cool Dark is, and grab some extra healing from Agdane, because hey, you never know when you'll need it. The crypt's rocks are tricky to navigate without hitting the bell, but once I clear a path, I'm out of there and never looking back. Not that I really could. Before taking on Velstad, I take a detour back to Earthen Peak to grab our ultimate weapon, Fashion. I figure since he's such a simp for Vendrick, if I give him a little provocation, there's no way he'd be able to resist us. So after a bit of grinding, our weapon is ready. Whoops, wrong party. Now we're talking Dommy Mommy time. Time to test it out. The fight starts off with some more war crimes with a couple casts of Poison Mist, and just like I predicted, he can't resist the toxic charm of Dommy Mommy as I punish him. He tries to get down on his knees and beg, but that only adds fuel to the fire. So after a few more hits, down he goes. And I can pick up the King's Ring now. Next up, trades. To trade Velstad's soul for Sacred Oath. After a quick respec at the Firecreeper's hut so I can actually cast it, I'm off to Aldia's Keep. And Aldia's Keep is, kind of boring. I give the invader a quick back massage, and then there's the ogre who tries to eat me like a snack. Other than that, nothing too exciting. Guardian Dragon follows suit in the boring department. He just flies around until I eventually break his kneecaps once he lands. A Dragon Eerie, I decide to save a bit of my sanity for later and take the zipline, because at this point, I can't stand any more bridges. The rest of the area is a blur until I reach Dragon Shrine, where I meet what has to be the worst dragon voice I've ever heard. He gives me the Ashen Mist heart, which opens up the giant memories. I go through each one, collecting all the giant souls I need to weaken Vendrick, and for the grand finale, I slice the giant lord's ankles to collect the last one. Alright, so here's the deal. I either can wrap up the game by heading to the Throne of Want and finishing it, or I can go on a full-blown murder spree and take out all the remaining bosses. Guess which route I picked? That's right, the one with a lot more murder. With Vendrick dead, there's only one optional boss standing between me and the throne. Dark Lurker. And guess where he is? The Abyss. A place full of holes and death. So what do? I dive straight into the chaos and tackle the most annoying hole first, of course. The main reason this place is such a cunt of an area is that it drops me in the middle of a small maze that has drops all around it. So obviously I keep falling off, making bits of progress by keeping track of the ledges with my bloodstain. However, I eventually discovered that by counting the stalagmites around the edge, I could slowly navigate my way around until I make it to the main area. Only to get ganked by all the phantoms. I'm gonna be honest here, dealing with all the phantoms and lighting the bowl was a real ass in my pain. This is the kind of suffering I enjoy putting myself through when I play video games, folks. But after a lot of persistence and deaths, I finally take out all the phantoms, light the bowl, and clear the area. Only 2 more to go. And surprise, I actually managed to light them without dying. I know, shocking. That means it's time for Dark Lurker. I pop a Bright Bug to counter his insane defenses, and then I go all in with my spin to win tactic, which works wonders when he splits. And then I got fucked by meters from his clone. So I do the exact same thing, except this time I don't get too greedy and keep my health topped, and bam, that's the last of the optional bosses. Now, there's just one thing left to do. Take the throne. But before I can take a sit, I've got 3 back-to-back fights to handle. First up, Throne Watcher and Defender. These guys put up a decent fight, staying aggressive and out of sight when I try to heal, and it's a bit of a slog, but once I start to spin to win, I win. Next is Nishandra, who honestly doesn't even put up a fight. Sliced her right up, all in revenge for ruining my one-shot video. And then, the final boss of the trio, Aldia, who's a tree. So, of course, I chop him down. Gotta keep my bonfire lit after all. That also means that yes, you can beat Dark Souls 2 without moving the camera. And that's it for the run. Or so I thought. You see, it was when I reached here that I decided I'm not done yet. Because why stop now? It's time to lose my mind completely and finish this game, all of it, without ever touching the camera. I just hate myself that much. You might be surprised at how easy, well, at least to what I was expecting, it was for me to navigate through Shulva all the way down to the bottom of Dragon's Sanctum, especially considering I've never actually beaten any of the DLCs. Yeah, when I said Dark Souls 2 was my least played game in the series, I wasn't kidding. I had to look up some how-tos for this. Reaching Dragon's Rest proved to be a bit more difficult as I kept falling off. But I happened to find a spot where if I had the cat ring on, I could just barely survive the fall to skip the rest of the way down. Now, on to Elena. And what do? I break the first rule of anime and interrupt her monologue. She barely even gets a chance to summon before I cut her health down to 30%. As for Velstad, he's back to being the simp he is, switching sides to help Miss Dunkpie out. But just like with Vendrick, he can't resist Dami Mommy, leaving her undefended, where I then brutally murder her. And then, Zin. This guy hits like a truck, filled with toxic chemicals. But the real kicker? He quadruples my weapon's durability loss every time I hit him. The only way to counter this was by using the few repair powders I had with me while beating him with my stick. And that's it. He goes down on my second attempt, and I obtain my first crown. Before heading to Eliam Lois, I still need to take care of the grave robbers, who were the sloppiest fight of the run. The Benny Hill theme would be a great way of describing it, and would be perfect here if I wasn't afraid of getting copyrighted for using it, as the entire 7 minutes of the fight is me frantically running around trying to heal as each of them tries to off-screen me. Once that mess is over, I get to Eliam Lois. After grabbing the priestess eyes, I can finally see Ava and kick her tail. Just like Sid, Ava also seems to have an increased durability loss to her, which I had no idea about. After frantically panicking where my health is, I managed to declaw this bad kitty. Entering the Grand Cathedral and speaking to Alana to unfreeze the area, I go around and find all the Elium Loist Knights. Now I want you to keep in mind that I'm saying this like finding them was easy, but in actuality finding each one was a monumental pain in the ass and took a few hours. With all the boys ready, we dive into the old chaos and take on the Burnt Ivory King. And this fight was just complete chaos. Believe it or not, without being able to really see a swarm of guys gunning for you, it's easy to find out what it feels like to be in a prison shower. That's to say I get penetrated. Do with that what you will. On my second attempt, the boys did a lot better helping out and managed to steal the portals rather quickly. When it's finally just me and the Ivory King, I try to keep him in sight, but he loves to launch forward and dart back into the void. So I fall back on my spin to win strat, heal when needed, and with no Estus left, somehow pull off the win. That's 2 crowns down, 1 to go. Also, I could fight Lud and Zolan. Could being the word of choice. But running through that angry unicorn field every run back is not good for what little of my sanity is remaining at this point. Because despite how easy I'm making some of this run sound, I'm sitting at approximately 30 hours already. And I don't want to turn to a vodka-induced psychosis just for the sake of completing them, especially when I already beat 1 kitty. So I head over to the Forest of Giants real quick, since I had forgotten to pick up the heavy key from the lizard pit earlier, before heading to Broom Tower so I can finish this run once and for all. Getting through the tower without moving the camera would have been hard enough, and I expected this area to be unpleasant. But what makes it as hard as it is that as soon as I enter the area, I have to cross this long ass chain at an angle that makes it nearly impossible to see how close to the edge I really am. So needless to say, I fell. A lot. And each time I fell, I had to run all the way back from Iron Cape. This drained me, to the point I even forgot about the elevator. So, I took a couple days off, completing my next run, which left me feeling motivated enough to try again. And, after a few more missteps, I finally managed to get to the tower, which luckily has a bonfire right there. Cool. Now I just have to finish the rest of the level. Yay. Hey there, it's Cody from the edit here. While you enjoy this montage of me attempting to parkour my way to the bottom of the tower without dying, I'd like to remind you that I'm all about ridiculous challenges like this. So, if you want more chaos, make sure you check out my other videos and subscribe to stay up to date. Who knows, I might come up with an even crazier way to beat the game next time. Alright, seems like I might have finally made it. So, back to it, shall we? After surviving the tower, I'm ready for Blue Hawaiian Smelly Demon, aka the Smelter Demon 2.0. Again, boss repeated, dim be poison, beat with stick I do. Thanks to the camera, I can finally see the lifts, and eventually, I make my way to Broom Knight. And for the first and last time, I fought him. I stuck close as possible to him, because while this is 100% just my conjecture, I think he suffers from the same damage penalty I do when hitting with just the hilt of his weapon, as the damage he was doing was very lackluster. That didn't stop him from nearly killing me though, because, hey, this is Dark Souls after all. With Broom Knight down, it's time for the final crown and the last stretch, Sir Elan. With how I've been putting the smackdown on the rest of these guys, I'm probably in pretty good shape, so can I just get this run done? Of course not. In a poetic end to my journey, my nemesis of the Lawn Knights has taken on its ultimate form to give me another series of violent outbursts that can only be cured with murder. So, I bust out a Brightbug, go full murder mode, and proceed to beat him with my spin stick until he spontaneously evaporates. And with that, the impossible is done. I've beaten all of Dark Souls 2, including its DLCs, without moving the camera. If you've enjoyed this madness, leave a like. And if you hated my voice, leave a dislike. I already did. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to torture myself with something a little more peaceful in a galaxy far, far away.